This week on Capitol Report, Donald Trump's guilty verdict and what it means for Connecticut politics. Plus,
it was a hell of a weekend.
Gun violence in Connecticut, getting the attention of Governor Lamont and others. Also, $100 million going towards innovation clusters in Connecticut.
Something we really want to double down on.
Double down. What? You got an 11. You always double down on 11.
Plus, legislation is signed, expanding the law on paid sick leave for employees.
This has been a long time coming.
Well, wait.
Senator Murphy walks across Connecticut.
I always think of this as a grounding exercise.
I mean, it was like an alarm went off in my head, you know? I said, here's a guy that's got his act together.
Does that mean all politicians have their acts together?
Hold it. Dude.
What about mine? Dude, what is mine say?
Welcome to Politics. Capitol Report starts now. Welcome to Capitol Report. I am Tom Dutcher. We are so glad you're spending part of your Sunday morning, and a great Sunday morning it is. A lot to talk about today. Alongside the power panel, the great mayor of Bloomfield, Connecticut, Danielle.
Good morning.
Good morning, Danielle. Hey, the Speaker of the House, former Speaker of the House, Brendan Sharkey.
Back again.
16 years in the Senate from Hamden. Probably couldn't get elected.
House of Representatives.
House of Representatives.
Not
Probably,
the Senate.
Wow.
Probably could not get elected to the town committee in Hamden.
True.
Liz Kramowitz, Republican strategist.
Wow. Starting off with a bang.
Hey, Johnny Max, I saved the insults right for Sharkey.
I couldn't get elected in Hampton either. So there you go.
Well, none of us are registered socialists, so there you go.
All right, guys, let's get into it. We begin this morning with the Republican presidential candidate and convicted felon, convicted felon, Donald Trump. Talk about a juxtaposition. What will this mean for 2024 election? Time will tell. Trump's conviction will likely energize his most ardent supporters. But what will the trickle-down effect be like for a party as a whole? And how will that impact other candidates and races? Here's a response from Connecticut GOP Chair Ben Proto. It reads, in part, the allegations made against President Trump were concocted wholly in service to the Biden campaign. They are desperate. They are losing. And they are, if you have read recent news, in a panicked freakout. As for Democratic Party Chair Nancy Donato, she says the verdict sends a message that no one is above the law, adding, we're going to work every day until November 5th to make sure Connecticut voters deliver another verdict. That Donald Trump is profoundly unfit to serve as president and Joe Biden is the leader we need in the White House. Guys, who wants to? Sharkey, let's have you have this first.
Yeah. I think the Chairman Proto has exactly the wrong message for Republicans in Connecticut because, and I've said this on this show over and over again, why it is that the Republican Party in Connecticut does not distance themselves from Donald Trump in office, after office, is beyond me because he is poison to the Republican brand in Connecticut. And I think doubling down, as Chairman Proto did in the quote you just read, I just don't think that in Connecticut, I just don't think that plays.
Sharkey, you know what I love?
What do you love?
I love Democrats tripping over each other to get to the podium to trash Donald Trump almost as quickly as they run to Joe Ganim in Bridgeport to get delegate support. And I'm sure that Joe Ganim would be delighted to know that Connecticut Democrats believe that a federal conviction and a felony conviction preclude you from serving in office. So I think that when we're talking about the hypocrites that exist in the Connecticut Democrat Party, they also have to look at what happened nationally after President Trump was convicted. They broke Win Red, right? The Republican donation platform went down because of the activity. So I think this is going to be a motivating factor for both parties. And so I think, you know, we're going to have to let it play on the field.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think you make a great point as far as, you know, the further extremism that our Republicans in Connecticut adopt. We have to be careful about that because they're going to hurt themselves, right? But I do want to kind of raise a point that the 34 convictions that Trump received, they were held by a jury of his peers, right? The parties didn't do this. The Congress didn't do this. The president didn't do this. Peers did it. Regular citizens held Trump accountable, and regular citizens need to continue to hold him accountable this November because that's really going to make or break what this country ultimately decides.
Well, Johnny Mac chomping to get in.
No, I mean, the question is, how is this going to impact Connecticut? I think on the one hand, not much. Joe Biden's going to win Connecticut. That, I think, we knew a long time ago. But I will tell you, just in the last, 12, 18 hours, I've had text conversations, personal conversations with a number of people who said, I was not going to vote for Trump. Now I'm so pissed off, I'm going to run to the ballot to vote for Donald Trump. Okay. So I think we may see his voters more energized. That's not going to win in Connecticut, but it may have a down ballot effect with more energy.
Hey, Shirley, wrap it up, Shirley.
Well, I just think, though, and I appreciate the analogy to Bridgeport, but the point, we'll talk about that in a minute, but I think, you know, that's apples and oranges. I think what we're talking about here is how does the Republican Party in Connecticut brand itself? Is it a MAGA Republican Party or not? And with the comments, all I was saying was the comments that the chairman made makes it seem like the Republican Party in Connecticut is a MAGA Republican unit, and that is not going to win in Connecticut.
But again, Sharky, I think that when you try and do that guilt by association approach, you end up having the fact that most Democrats in Connecticut are cross-endorsed by the Working Families Party, and they seek that endorsement. And that is probably one of the most extreme parties that exists in the country right now. So if we're going to do a broad brush approach, then I would suggest to you that everybody that's running as a Democrat better think really hard about whether or not they're going to go pursue the Working Families Party endorsement.
Like Johanna Hayes?
All right, guys. Hey, good to have Sharky back to pride of Georgetown University. Governor Lamont playing to a home crowd at Yale School of Management last week. Probably got Sonnenfeld there. Lamont got his MBA at Yale in 1980, and on Wednesday he announced the state's Department of Economic and Community Development will provide $100 million in grants to back a startup innovation cluster program with a focus on biotech, advanced manufacturing, and the fintech space. McKinney knows nothing about this. Watch this.
We're going to double down there in terms of investment in, data center and artificial intelligence, how we can put that together. And by the way, we're doing that with Yale University in partnership with the University of Connecticut. I think I saw Radenka Merrick over there, head of the University of Connecticut. That's a partnership. That's how we work together. And we want your involvement there as well. We want the private sector involved. We want the startups. So we turn this, data hub into something that can make an enormous difference.
All right, Yale graduate McKinney, you kick this off. Huh?
Well, no, this is a great program, and I know Liz will, because has some experience dating back to the Roland and Rel days working on clusters. What is so different about this, and is such a welcome change from his predecessor, Governor Malloy, is that he's brought UConn and Yale together. I remember talking to former Governor Malloy about the whole Jackson Labs biotech. I said, why aren't you doing this with Yale and UConn? He refused to want to work with Yale. And bringing in the power of Yale and UConn together, I think, is really what makes this different, and it's a great job by the governor.
Danielle, jobs, right?
Yes, I think so. I think historically we haven't seen the results of job creation, and I think that there's a different formula today, and I'm hoping that it does result in the jobs, right? You have these community partners. I know it's a less investment. Previously, there's been more money invested, but with Yale and UConn to the table, it'll end up being not 100, but maybe 400 million at the end of the day, which will really kind of drive the market in biotech, in finance tech, and in the manufacturing world.
And using our resources that we have in Connecticut, Yale and UConn as two powerhouses, is something that's just common sense. I mean, it's a no-brainer. But also the integration of transit-oriented development and building communities around transportation hubs. You know, this is a dream that's been going on for 15 years, and I think Governor Lamont's finally bringing it home. So
we'll have to get Jody Rell in this conversation a little bit later. Gun violence is a problem impacting all of Connecticut cities, and in Bridgeport, bullets were flying over the Memorial Day weekend. 5 shootings in just over 24 hours, 3 of them happening in one apartment complex alone. Luckily, no lives were lost, but the shootings prompted the police, Mayor Ganem, and then Governor Lamont and community activists to hold a news conference that says they plan to take action. Bridgeport's police chief is ready to lock those up responsible for the violence. Watch this.
Obviously, we want to dissuade individuals from getting involved, but if we have to, we will lock people up and ensure that they're convicted.
We can't take back our streets, but parents, what we can do is go look in the closets, look in the drawers. The guns are being held somewhere. I, too, have been one of those parents that had to go look in my closets, and I'm not exempt from any of this. So this is why I can stand here, because I stand on your level.
It's a unique time where we can give everybody the best opportunity. We have more jobs out there. We'll provide the training for you. And that's the best way to prevent this violence. Give people an alternative. Give them some hope.
Liz, this is where we go to our friend Mike Lawler's Twitter feed, and he brings many statistics telling us crime is down in Connecticut.
Again, we talk about statistics, and obviously they are important, but the bigger piece of this is, how do people feel? How do they feel in their community? How do they feel in their neighborhoods? And I think when you're listening to our friends and neighbors in Bridgeport, they don't feel safe. And you know, we look back, I mean, I distinctly remember Mayor Bronin at the time getting into it with, I believe it was Senator Winfield, who was advocating that we not prosecute for gun crimes. And when you look at the statistics, we're not prosecuting for gun crimes. We're not enforcing the laws that we have, and it is making our communities less safe. And so, especially as we go into the summer months that tend to be much more violent, Bridgeport is not the only city where this is happening. We're seeing this issue pervasive throughout. I mean, Waterbury is another example. So I think the governor's right. It's a broader, more holistic approach.
Mayor, have at it.
Yeah, I think that if we don't get serious about fixing our systems with the child and making a strong child, we're going to continue to see the violence on the front end when you're talking about young adults and no pathways, no opportunities. And so, yes, it talks about high-level solutions, but we really need to get serious about investing in our disconnected youth, investing in our local schools and our public schools, and investing in the opportunities that the state offers. And until we do that, we're going to continue to see the gun violence. We're going to continue to see politicians, Democrats and Republicans, making those remarks. And, you know, we'll see.
All right, guys. Hey, so speaking of Bridgeport, the city's rich tradition of political drama is adding a new chapter. Democrats endorsed Councilwoman Anita Martinez for the 124th House District seat. Martinez getting the nod over incumbent State Rep Andrea Baker, thrown to the curb. Martinez, you may recall, was at the center of the mayoral absentee ballot controversy this past fall, which resulted in primary and election do-overs. A judge ruled Martinez and Wanda Gerder-Pataki mishandled absentee ballots, a violation of state law. It's a head-scratcher to a lot of Democrats in Hartford who are questioning why Bridgeport Dems would support someone who featured so prominently in a ballot fraud investigation, guys. Huh?
I mean, I'm not
because there are no consequences. Because Mario Testa, Joe Ganim get to do whatever they want to do. This is, I can't even speak on this. This is so outrageous. I'm all for second chances, but you cannot put the bank robber back working for the bank. And that's what she was doing. She was stuffing ballots. She was stealing elections. She's going to be prosecuted. It's not her first brush with the law. This is crazy. And I hope Speaker Ritter and all of, Speaker Sharkey's old friends up in the Democratic House Caucus move to Bridgeport, get Representative Baker his signatures, get him on the primary ballot, get him to win that primary. He needs to win. They need to send a message. You cannot do this.
Well, Andre is also a personal friend, and I'm going to be working for him, as I am for Bill Finch, who's running for one of the Senate seats as well. Yes, it's very, very difficult to explain. I think one of the things that happens, I know we discussed this before in Hamden, the same thing happened, when it's an all one-party community, these types of things happen, and you wind up getting factions within factions who wind up helping each other instead of helping the city or helping their community. And I think, to your point, John, I think a statement needs to be made here, I think.
Well, Sharkey has one of those Bill Finch rain barrels at his house, I'm sure.
I do.
Well, if 2 is a company and 3 is a crowd, what does 4 make? Next on Cap Report, the scramble for an open Senate seat in Bridgeport. News 8's Mike Cerulli is dripping with intel on this race. He's here to break it all down. We get back. The kid, don't go away.
Oh, Mike.
Sharkey, rain barrels, baby. Rain barrels.
Love them.
You got chickens in. Bridgeport never fails to produce a good political story. And this summer, the stage is set for multiple potential primaries in the Park City. Get that. We talked about the House race on the East End. News 8's political contributor Mike Cerulli joins us now to break down another marquee race. Mike, you've been following the race for the 22nd State Senate District pretty closely. What's the latest?
Yeah, good morning, Tom. There's actually a 4-way Democratic primary brewing in the 22nd. That's Marilyn Moore's district. She's retiring. Former Bridgeport Mayor Bill Finch, as Speaker Sharkey mentioned, former Bridgeport Councilman Tyler Mack, current Bridgeport Councilman Scott Burns, and Trumbull lawyer and law professor Sujata Gadkar Wilcox all in the mix for that August election to succeed more. And it's really a race that's shaped by the geography of the district. It's divided along an urban-suburban line with part of the district covering Trumbull and Monroe and another part of the district covering Bridgeport. Now, Bridgeport really is the center of gravity in terms of voters in the district, but the two suburbs, they have enough say here that Bridgeport alone is not going to be able to decide the next senator.
And Mike, there's 3 Bridgeport candidates here, 1 Trumbull candidate. So it seems like Judah has a real opening here to coalesce the support of the suburbs. McKinney's shaking his head.
Yeah, that's her theory of the case. She's known by Trumbull Democrats. She's been on the ballot several times, running unsuccessfully against State Rep Dave Rutigliano.
We probably can't count those Bridgeport candidates out, right, yet, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's right. For one thing, you've got Bill Finch, and I've got to think nearly every Bridgeport Democratic primary voter knows Bill Finch's name. They might still view him as that anti-establishment, anti-Bridgeport establishment voice, and that could play to his advantage in the parts of the city covered by the district, places like Black Rock. It also plays well outside the city, where suburban voters' views of Bridgeport have been largely shaped by stories of corruption and ballot stuffing. Tyler Mack and Scott Burns, also not exactly allies of that Bridgeport establishment, but both also talked about as potential recipients of an endorsement from Mayor Ganim. So Ganim could be the wild card here. If he wades into the race, it could be definitive in setting one of those Bridgeport candidates apart. On the other hand, the other candidates could turn it into a referendum on that pro-Ganim establishment. So it's a really careful needle to thread between getting the establishment backing and being seen as independent. And that, plus that urban-suburban divide, I think combined is going to make this a really, really unpredictable race, Tom.
Mike Surley on the Bridgeport piece. Sharky's man-crushing Finch here during the last break, so he's intently watching your report. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Great to be here.
See you soon. Hey, up next on Cap Report, the new state laws for paid sick days. Stick around. Don't go away. Man-crushing Finch. You're Hancock on new legislation that extended paid sick leave time for Connecticut employees. Employers of nearly every occupation will be required to provide employees with up to 40 hours of paid sick leave annual. There are a lot of Republican naysayers who pushed back on this. Take a listen to what the governor had to say about that. Watch this.
There you go. Oh, Governor, this is going to really be bad for small business and nobody's going to grow jobs here again. Well, hold it. Dude, I think you told me the same thing about the minimum wage. I think you told me the same thing about paid family and medical leave. And I want you to know that we've had more economic growth, more opportunities, more startups, small businesses with women and women of color ever before in the history of the state.
A beaming Susan Price was in back of the boss there, huh? Hey, Mayor, so push back against some of these Republicans who say it's going to be a job killer.
Yeah, so, being on the ground, being a local mayor and understanding the local businesses, small and large, this is having no minimal impact. I do believe that. I do agree with Senator Looney, the governor, that these are the same arguments that have been made in the past to have a talking point during the campaign and delineate and contrast, Republicans versus Democrats on the ballot. This is going to be a minimal impact, and this is good for the economy. It keeps people employed, it keeps people home and safe and have job employment and job security. And so what I'm hearing from a small business standpoint, there could be adjustments on their current policies. So they are just looking for ways to implement this according to the law. If it's minimizing some of their paid time off, and supplementing that with sick time leave just to make sure that businesses are able to make their bottom line, they're going to do that. There are creative ways where people aren't going to be out and are going to be able to move forward and implement this safely, securely, and with equity. So congratulations to the Democrats for getting this passed. Within 3 years, this is going to be universal throughout the state of Connecticut. And some businesses already have this in place, so it's going to be absolutely zero impact to them.
Unfortunately, this isn't just a Republican-Democrat issue. When you look at the polling that the Harvard Business Journal did, for example, 62% of respondents said they did not support this policy. 53% said that it was going to cost businesses and therefore cost consumers. We've already seen that in this process, business owners, especially small business owners, are not able to keep up with all of the paperwork that's required. They're raising prices and they're cutting hours. I think that from an economic development standpoint, what would have made sense is if you're going to do something that's going to be a burden on the small business and on their employees, to balance that out with a tax cut to allow for them to be able to at least be held harmless on the financial side of it, and also to be able to pay for the services to keep up with the paperwork and to make sure that they're following the law. So if you really want it to have a positive economic impact, you should have cut taxes while adding that burden.
All right, guys, next up on Capital Report, the debate over whether New Haven is the pizza capital of the United States. It's not going away quietly. Stick around with new information. New information. We didn't have a program last week watching that Formula One Grand Prix in Monaco, but we wanted to talk about the New Haven entering the congressional record as the pizza capital of the United States. Yes, New Haven pizza is great. Yes, New Haven pizza has cultural significance. And yes, New Haven is the David among pizza Goliaths. That being said, two of the nation's largest cities aren't taking the whole New Haven pizza capital idea lightly. New York, not pleased. New York Times article slammed the idea that New Haven would lay claim over the Big Apple on pizza. And those deep dish fellas in the Windy City also had a bone to pick with the Elm City. Guys, huh? Come on, McKinney, you're crushed in Chicago pizza in the break.
Chicago pizza isn't pizza.
It's not.
Right?
No.
It's not
bread.
pizza.
Yeah.
So, yes, New York has always been famous for pizza. So is New Jersey. They're just not as good as
Democratic
New Haven and
convention in Chicago. Rosa DeLauro, not going to be good.
They're going to be riots in the streets.
This is the greatest thing Rosa DeLauro ever done.
1968.
All right, guys, that's it for the mayor, the Shark Man, Lizzie, Johnny Mac. I'm done. Don't you get this really tight.
All right,
See you next week.
John. Let's go.
Oh!